Hello and welcome to Twist Grip Tales. It's about time we gave you an update on what's happening with our Salt Lake Racer. Sadly, the Australian Land Speed Week was cancelled in South Australia because of catastrophic rainfall. They got a year's rain in a week, flooded the lake with water. We weren't going boat racing, we needed dry salt to go Salt Lake racing. So we want to bring you a bit of an update as to what's happened with the bike so far and what we're now going to be doing for the bike to be racing next year, because we have our eyes firmly planted not only on breaking an Australian land speed record, but we are now looking and chasing and hunting for the world land speed record for the class for our little Braaap ST250. So let's take you on that journey and let's bring the bike in and let's talk about the bike and a few of the sponsors that have helped us on the journey. And here she is, a little ST250 Braaap. Braaap, who have sponsored this by giving us this bike. And if you want your pizzas delivered, you're probably going to get a bike with one of these little engines, Honda CG copy. And if you want to go fast on a Braaap or any bike, you've got to be able to cut through the wind. And we've chosen this bodywork to help us cut through the wind. Now, with only 4 months to go, we would have only had the front fairing. But now that we've got a little bit more time, what we're going to be doing is making copies of these, lightweight copies, and filling in all of these air spaces here, the headlights and those sorts of things, to make us a little bit more aerodynamic, because once you get past 80 mile an hour, you want every horsepower pushing you through the wind. So we need to get this thing really slippery. So what does it look like fully naked? Well, let me just undress her and let's see what she looks like naked. Here's the tail piece. Whoops, unclip her. And the under panels, just take them off. You can see lots of holes in here. We don't need those because we want to go fast. And then the nose cone. Doesn't that look good? Very slippery. Once all these holes are sorted out and filled in with very lightweight. So here she is. Now, when we first looked at this bike, we took it to the dyno, and that was down at our friends at Eurobrit Australia Motorcycles. And we put it on the dyno there with Daryl, and we've got an episode up there on Daryl. And sadly, Daryl passed away from cancer, and this was the last bike that he dynoed. So in honour of Daryl Hutcheon, we're going to be calling this bike Daryl. So you want to talk to us about the bike, ask us about Daryl. Very touching that we had the honour to be working on the bike and benchmarking this little engine and this bike before we started doing the radical changes. So what other radical changes have we done? Well, first of all, you'll see that this bike is very low to the ground. So we've got clip-ons. Normal handlebars sit up here. So the clip-ons we've got are dropped, and we're way down. And out of the forks, you'll see that the forks, there's only about 75 mil of travel, a lot less than standard. And this seat is only 600 millimeters off the ground. We've looked to cheat the wind every way we can. Getting out of the wind, getting this bike slammed down onto the ground is what we do. The shock absorbers at the rear end, nah, it's on salt, it's flat. They drag a railway line, a piece of steel behind trucks to flatten off the salt. Any little undulations, it is as flat as a dining room table. You don't need it, and these are slamming it right down onto the ground. And if you want to go through the wind smoothly with least resistance, you want it to be long. So under the rules, although we've got to have a standard frame, we're allowed to extend the swing arm, which we have, 110 millimeters. And so we've done that. We've cut and shut the swing arm, and the wheel is way back here, and that's good. So the other thing is the normal foot pegs that would be down here. We've shifted them back, so our normal foot position, it's very comfortable to have your feet right back here, so we get the knees down, knees pointing into the wind behind the fairing, and on the other side you'll see the gear shift has been shifted way back to be on the rear foot peg back here as well. So maybe we should also talk about the rules and regulations require that we have a steering damper, not normally required for a little Braaap. This is the steering damper off a Yamaha 600. So that's going to comply with the regs and give us stability at speed, as the long swing arm will as well. And you'll see at the front here, the handlebar's been dropped, and we've got only one brake operated by the hand, operating the rear brake right down here at the back. So we've got one long specially made brake fluid tube going right the way to the rear one, and we don't have a disc brake on the front because you don't go fast by having disc brakes on the front. We only need to slow down. We've got 5 miles to run, which is about 8 kilometres to get this little baby up to speed, and we're going to take every little bit of that we can. So what else have we done? The seat has been slammed down. Let's talk for a moment about the engine. This is the normal engine, which has a little bit more compression because we used Martini heads, or did I do it? I did some, Martini did some. Anyway, they've helped us with shortening the barrels to give us a bit more compression ratio. We're now running what I call an adequate street type compression with standard piston in here. We've got a big carburetor, 30mm carburetor with a big aluminium trumpet. Let me just lift up the seat. Alf did a great job on the seat. And you'll see the air filter back here. Let me just take the side out of the air filter mechanism. So I got air filters here. There we go. And you'll see the air box. So you need lots of still air in here. The carburetor's coming back. We haven't finished this, but this is where it's happening. And this will be having a couple of snorkels facing forward and forcing air into here. Not so much to give us an enormous amount of pressure, but to make sure that we don't have a negative pressure. We want to have just a little bit of pressurization for the carburetor so that we're not sucking. We're trying to actually blow a little bit in there and get the maximum horsepower that we can. So this is the standard engine, which is going to be reliable and keep us running all week. We will be testing this to see if the 102 octane Power Plus fuel is going to give us any advantage, because this engine, we won't be using a specialised ignition system on this one. We'll be using a Michael B hot up kit ignition system on this, which gives a little bit fatter spark, a little bit nicer, stronger spark. But one of the things we will be using, because if you want your engine to go really fast, is you need really good oil. And Top One oil, thanks to JP Affleck, World Land Speed record holder in the 100cc class. While there are lots of oils that will give you great reliability at normal or racing speed, slowing down, speeding up, this engine has to be full throttle for maybe 5 minutes. That is a lot of work for a tiny little engine at maximum revs. And the oil that I respect to keep everything running and keeping it friction-free at maximum revs for a long period of time has been proven time and time again is Top One motor oil. It's not cheap, but it really does work. Operating temperatures are fantastic. Slipperiness and all the things that a motor oil is supposed to do, this is what works at maximum revs, maximum horsepower for an engine, and we want to make sure that this little engine lasts all week when we're running this. So thank you for the sponsorship from Top One Oil, and that's from JP Affleck. You can check out our website if you want to know where to get this. If you're running your ST250 Braaap or any other motorcycle to a Hayabusa. at maximum speed. So other things we've done, Tyres sponsorship by Tyres. We've got European made high speed rated tyres from Mitas, and thank you for that. So we'll be fitting those as well. They haven't been fitted yet, but before we go over to the Salt, we'll be fitting it with the Mitas tyres. And you can get them in Melbourne and Sydney, and all good tyre stockists for motorcycles. Excellent. Tyres. Now the other thing is friction. So we've got good friction-free oil in the engine, but the other things that can slow you down, we've reduced the braking by one. We've only got one disc, and that won't be touching while we're running. So we'll be making sure that that's running loose and free, is the wheel bearings. Now, statewide bearings have been really, really good, not only in supplying us with the bearings that we need, but they've found bearings which are super duper great for speed records. They are slightly greater clearance, so they're freer running, and the seals are zero friction seals. So the comparison is just enormous in the lack of friction that these bearings supply, and we are really excited to get these going because the rolling resistance from a bearing in this frame, in these wheels, and this bike, just magic. So thank you very much, especially to Rob there at Statewide Bearings. Great sponsorship. Thank you very much. Now, one of the other things on the bike is that for racing, what we need is an oil spill tank, oil catch tank, and that's this one here. So the oil breather will be coming not into the air filter, as happens on a normal Braaap, but into the catch tank. And from there, we'll be running a vacuum, running off the exhaust to put negative pressure into here, not sucking oil out, but making sure that the engine crankcase is running at negative pressure, because a crank running at maximum revs, if it's got positive pressure in the crankcase, is pushing all that air around. And you can probably imagine that if it's running in a vacuum, then there is very little what they call windage, very little resistance if there's no air in the crankcase running in a vacuum, and that's what our negative pressure exhaust vacuum is going to be doing for us. Modification from standard. One of the questions we get is, aren't you going to do everything you can to get the bike light? And the short answer to that is, no, we're not. If you're drag racing, you got to get your bike up to speed in a short space of time. Drag racing, yes, you want everything light. You take the starter motor off, you change all your nuts and bolts over, drill them, turn them to aluminium, titanium, that sort of thing. We don't have to do that because we've got 5 miles to get up to speed. So it takes us a little bit longer for every ounce of weight we're carrying, especially how much we eat. But we don't need to be so weight conscious when we've got the distance to get up to speed. So that's a really good thing, and it saves a lot of money because titanium is expensive. In the other engine, the high performance engine, we've got titanium valves out of a Hayabusa, but we'll talk more about that later. But for general speaking, we're keeping the starter motor because that's convenient to start the bike up. Otherwise, we'd have to have another method of starting the bike up. Push start, not such a problem with a low compression motor like this, but some of the big boys running uber high compression, they're going to use starters, so we don't have to bother about that. Now let me just put this seat down. There we go. This is made out of soft wood, not hardwood, because we want to have a soft seat to sit on. We may put some foam on that, but not so necessary. Now, a lot of questions about safety. Yes, we have to have leather riding gear, which is going to be very uncomfortable for everyone at 50-degree temperatures in the shade, and there is no shade. But so we'll be wearing leathers, and I've got to thank AMX for all your motorcycle accessory needs. Our sponsors from the Epping store at 336 Cooper Street, Epping. Go and see Johan, ask for him by name. They have supplied us not only with these wonderful HJC helmets, but gloves, which are racing quality gloves. So wonderful helmets. Current spec, you need a current spec helmet. And we've got these wonderful gloves, which are racing quality argon gloves. and we're really looking forward to not testing them out, but having being comfortable to wear. Lots of ventilation in these helmets, which is going to be good for keeping us cool, and they're very aerodynamic as well. You can see they've got the little speed blip at the back. We're looking for an extra few kilometres an hour out of these helmets in what they're going to be able to do for us. So that's good. Johan at AMX has also sponsored us for the bike stand, which is great. Thank you, Johan. And also the chain for the bike as well. So they supply lots of different things, and you can get your needs there at Epping or any one of the other stores right around Australia for your motorcycling accessory needs. Check them out online or drive there and ask for that. They've got a phone number. You can phone them up. They answer the phone. That's really good. Now, the team for Daryl Racing is, of course, Aaron, Alf. You've got to have names that start with A, unless your name is Lachlan, behind the camera. Thank you very much, Lachlan. And Aaron from Auto Body Restore has done a great job on the tank. Let me just go and get the tank. Get the tank, one of our sponsors, Movember. Don't forget, Men's Health is 12 months a year, not just in Movember. And the great signage for Braaap motorcycles. So this just clips on here, and that really dresses the bike up a treat. Look at that, magic stuff. It's a really good looking bike with the paint job. It's going to look fantastic. We're excited. So if you need paint work done, maybe not as sponsorship orientated as this, but you're restoring a bike or a car, Aaron's the man. Check him out. You'll find him through our Twist Grip Tails, and he's happy to do all that sort of fancy work for you, and he's very reasonably priced and a great guy to deal with as well. Good on you, Aaron. Other sponsors have been Ford, who were quite prepared to give us a truck to get us over to the Salt, which was great. It was cancelled, so we gave it back to them so they could use it for someone else. So thank you, Ford Australia. Really good. And Movember, of course, as I've said, Men's Health. You've got to keep on your men's health. It's not nagging, it's encouraging to get someone to go and get a health check, because Men's Health is 12 months of the year. Grow a mo to save a bro. And of course, while we haven't been saving weight on nuts and bolts, all of the nuts and bolts that we've done on this bike, we've changed them to high tensile bolts, because we're taking this bike to the very limit, and we don't want bolts doing the wrong thing at high speed, because my butt's on the line or on the seat. So all things safety wear in Thomastown and Greensboro. Check them out online. We've got to thank Shannon for sponsorship and giving us and supplying all of the bolts that we needed to go and put this together. High tensile bolts, stainless steel bolts, all the fasteners. It's amazing how many fasteners a tiny little bike like this has. Thank you, Shannon, at All Things Safety Wear. They don't only do nuts and bolts, they do safety wear. So vests and overalls and jackets and all things like that, boots, gloves, helmets, all that sort of stuff, safety wear. They do all of that. Check them out online. Anyone who sponsors us is a great people to deal with, and Shannon's a great guy to deal with, as is his whole team. So that's the update. What are we going to do in order to prepare further? We've got to get the moulds for the fairing. We've still got to run the motors in. They've only got about 3 or 4 kilometres on the clock, and for us to get the most out of the motor, they have to be a little bit loose, and that means we've got to get at least 300, 400 kilometres on the clock. We're looking to go a little bit of track racing with these motors, see how that'll work out. So follow us and check that out, because we'll be looking to get these engines fully run in before we take them to maximum speed. So a big thanks to all our sponsors, and a big thanks to all of you people out there that are giving us the encouragement to go to the Salt. We haven't gone this year, but we are going, and it's going to be big. We're after a world land speed record now. Some of you will have noticed this little button here. We'll save that for next time, the mystery button. Maybe you can guess what the button is all about. So get on and private message us if you want one of these fancy t-shirts. Don't forget Movember. Men's Health is every month of the year. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next exciting episode on Daryl, the world's fastest Braaap. And if you've got any questions, send us a comment below and we'll get on and answer them. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.